So firstly, what's your thoughts of a second American football team in Lancashire?
I think it'd be great to have another varsity competition against UCLan, with it being such a local team. We've got our current varsity competition against York, but obviously they're the other side of the country to us. But it'd be nice to have 2 games a year against UCLan as well, and build up a strong rivalry there.
What's the interest in American football like at Lancaster?
It varies year on year. It's certainly been increasing recently with the presence of American football in the UK increasing as well. The games at Wembley have certainly helped that, I think. Really creating an interest and a buzz about the sport there. It hurts a bit that the games are shown so late on a Sunday night, which isn't exactly prime time for people watching always. I mean, everyone's got a busy schedule on Monday, so to have to stay up until 1 or 4 in the morning on a Sunday night's not ideal if you want to support your team. But this year we had about 150 people sign up at our Freshers' Fair. About 90 or so come down to the tryouts there, and then after that we've got a squad of around like 40 to 50 players, with 30 regular players coming down to all the training sessions, all the games as well, and then a few fringe players who they enjoy it, they like to be part of the team, but it's a big time commitment as well, which is one of the barriers, I suppose. Having to learn a completely different sport, I mean, it's got similarities to rugby, but it's still a lot different, and to have to completely adopt something new, it makes it difficult for players, I think, in their first year, because you want to be enjoying university, but then to commit 2 nights a week and then all day Sunday stops you from going out on a Saturday night. It puts a few people off, I think, really.
And what are the challenges of running an American football team with the amount of players you've got and the plays that you all have to learn?
So for the challenges of running the team, or the challenges of teaching everyone?
Everything really.
I guess, I mean, the main thing that's sprung to mind when you mention the challenges is the cost of it, the cost of running a team. I did the budget for our team this year. It's quite difficult to estimate how many players you're going to get and how much subs you have to charge. This year we went for £80 for our players. We get a lot of help from our student union, and they'll help purchase a bit of kit. They pay for our transportation to all our away games, which is obviously quite dear as well, and the ambulance, which you need to have at every game. On top of that, we had to pay for a lot more kit. You know, you've got to keep on keeping your kit supplies sort of relatively new, because you can't give a player a 6-year-old helmet and expect them to not get a concussion, basically. But yeah, on top of it, so it's not a cheap sport to play. You have to pay registration fees to British University's American Football League, which isn't cheap. It's about £28 for that, I think. And then, so yeah, the £80 gets quickly spent, and getting people to be interested in the sport and then pay money on top of it, it's not always easy. I mean, your college football team at Lancaster, I think you pay maybe £2 a week every game or something to wash shirts and things like that, and maybe a one-off fee of buying club jerseys, but it's a lot cheaper to do that, a lot less of a time commitment. So it's trying to keep people interested in the sport throughout the year is probably one of the main challenges I face. Getting players down twice a week and every game, it's a lot easier said than done. I suppose it's a challenge for the first year players. I remember in my first year it was a lot to take in, a playbook of a sport you've never played before. As an offensive and defensive lineman, it was relatively simple. I suppose being a quarterback would be a lot more difficult. You've got to know exactly what everyone's doing on the pitch. And this year we've had 2 first years as quarterbacks. They sort of split time evenly, and it's been a challenge for them, I'd imagine. But hopefully one of the quarterbacks should be joining us in a little while, and he'll be able to tell you about his photographic memory and how he's learned everything overnight. Yeah, it's not an easy sport, but it's very rewarding, I found. So whilst there's challenges, it's all paid off, I feel.
How quickly do you find players coming into the sport who've never played it before can adapt and learn the rules of it?
We had, I think it was about a 3 or 4 week turnaround between Freshers' Fair and our first game. Our first game was November 6th against Hull. Our Freshers' Fair was October 6th, so there's about a 4-week gap there. I mean, our first training session was 8th and 9th of October, where you're kind of introducing players, kind of saying this is the position you might be suitable for, and then 3 weeks of Tuesday night, Thursday night and Sunday of saying this is how to play a position, and then throwing you into your first game. Because of graduation, the majority of our players this year have been freshers. So I mean, Triggs for one is a defensive starter, and I'd say there's probably about 5 other guys on defense starting who'd never played before. 5 guys on offense who'd never played before. So yeah, we had a lot of first year players, and it can't really be helped. I suppose with the university, players graduate, pure and simple. You can't keep them. You can't force them to do masters as much as I'd like to force them to. So yeah, it's kind of you get thrown in at the deep end really. Some universities have it slightly easier. They have a boot camp, say, where they have an entire weekend of American football, introducing people to it, and so that's a benefit for them. The problem with that is it's not cheap to run that, and you know it really would be throwing people in the deep end with that. And you can't really say like, oh, you signed up for Freshers Fair, okay, now you're coming away for the weekend with us and say goodbye to university for 48, 72 hours. But some universities who start of September obviously have 8 weeks before their first game, which has got to help them out quite a bit, I'd say.
Onto the league that everyone plays in, the Northern Conference. What's the competition like in it?
It's a very healthy competition, I'd say. You've got your perennial top spot Sheffield Hallam, who are a really dominant team, and then there's a group of teams below that who I like to think the last couple of years we've been at the top of that. So whilst we've lost to Hallam, we've beaten all the other guys, and this year it's very cyclical, I find. You've got teams who will always be at the top, and then some years you've got teams who haven't done so well, but then the next year they'll do a lot better with their fresher intake. Bangor this year is a good example of that. The last 2 years they were the league's whipping boys. You know, I don't think they scored many points at all. The first year they played, I don't think they scored any points, but I'm not definite on that one. This year they look as if they could go 7-1, so they'll be in the playoffs this year. The competition's very healthy, and you know, you're on top 1 minute, you're at the bottom the next, which has been slightly a bit of our problem this year, where we went from second in the conference 2 years running to dead last until this weekend. But fortunately we're sort of mid-table again with a win now, so hopefully we can get back up to the top there by the end of the season.
So finally then, what advice would you give to anyone trying to set up a university American football team?
Just plan for every eventuality. You know, the more planning you do, the better it's going to work out. You know, plan every session you've got. Help rookies out as much as you can. Get the finance right. The finance especially, because one of our problems this year was that we had a lot of players sign up and we didn't have enough kit. So we had maybe 40 sets of kit, and then 50 players coming to the first few sessions. It's not a lot of fun for the guys who aren't in pads, and it's not easy to have to say, you know, midway through training sessions, all right, you've had half an hour now, give your kit to someone else for half an hour. No one really enjoys that too much, and it puts people off. So I'd say getting your funding right, getting all the kit you need for the first year. Starting out, you need 2 affiliation games against ideally local teams, which is something we'd be happy to help out UCLan with, as I've mentioned, to Sam Field. But yeah, the more planning you do, the better it will work out for you. The more publicity you do, the better it will work out for you.
Terrific.